Welcome to the November meeting of Access Europe. We have a fellow UK developer, Chris Arnold, who was one of our very first presenters back in 2022, and we've invited him back to talk about his holiday snaps. Actually, he won't be. He'll be showing you other pictures there as part of his image photo cataloguer, which he has created for Access. And I'm going to stop sharing now, Chris, and let you introduce yourself properly. And if you would like to take over.
Okay, hi. Well, thanks everybody for coming along. Hope you will enjoy the presentation. The reason I developed the photo cataloguer was because I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs, and trying to find one when you want to find it is a nightmare. So, a little bit about me initially. I'm actually a qualified accountant. I've been FD and FC of a number of companies over the years, but for the last 30 or so, I've been working with Access and contracting and developing for the last 25 years. Primary focus has been on financial management and resolving discontinuity between corporate systems. And that's really all I need to say about my past. And currently I'm a regular contributor to AWF and Access Forum. To look at images and work them out, you get all these lovely names. Where's my mouse? There it is. All these lovely names, but difficult to see what they actually mean. Okay, you can change the view to see them as pictures, but it still isn't all that great. And also by selecting an image, you can see a profile there as well, but it's still not helping you to find pictures. For that, you can use tags. But to do tags, as I'll demonstrate in a minute, is painfully slow when you're doing it on an image by image basis. So what the catalogue does is it takes an image, and as you'll see in a minute, you'll be able to swipe left and that will remove it. Or you can swipe right to various categories that you can have in there and tag the images in a consistent way. And then when you're ready, you process based on a number of options. You can move deleted pictures to a deleted folder. Another option is to do nothing and it'll just stay where it is. Tag option is to populate the metadata or not. The size option is you can reduce size. Some of these pictures can be very, very large. Let's go back to that one. You'll see on here, they're 4,000 or 5,000 bits in size. And if you reduce by 50%, that actually reduces the file size by a lot more, probably to about 10%. And then finally, you've got an option as to save. This one is moved to category folder, but there are other options as well. You can organize things there. So that's basically how it works. And with that, what I have here is, this is the folder here. And this is called pics. And you'll see here, this is pics. So these are all the images. What I've done is I brought them through. They're displayed on a web page. Some of these, if I go to details, you can see I've already got some tags in there. The advantage of that is if I do garden, for example, I just have to start typing it, and that will come any images that got garden in it. I'm not sure if you're aware of this functionality, but this is what I'm trying to make use of. Within here, I've got three boxes. There's the box in the middle, which is where everything starts off. You've got the remove or delete section where you just swipe left. So if I want to delete, I just move it into there and it'll get rid of it. There's another one I don't think I want to see. So I'll put that there. And then on the right, I've got ones that's already been processed, which if I go back to the Windows Explorer, if I go back to here, you can see I've got 4 images which are already tagged. And that was just from something I was doing earlier, and there are the 4 there. So you can move things around. If I want to tag something else, I do have to specify where I want to put it. So if I try to put it there, you'll see I need to select a category. So I don't know what this is, but we'll call that house. And nothing I really want to see on there, but I'm going to add a new one. And I'm going to call this curtains. That I can't spell. And that's added curtains on, so I can now select that and drag it across, and it's now been added in to the picture. You can scroll up and down for these. You'll see up here, I've only showing this really because it's just to show you kind of how it works. So the tags are stored as primary keys in here, But for the file, the metadata, which is the tags, basically that's going to take curtains and house. So the reason is it's taking both that and that. If I had something on renovation, there's another one on renovation. So walls, tick that, tick that. Let's find a wall. That one will do. Put that across there. And you can see I've now got walls, renovation, and house. You can select more than one thing like that, and you can see that that extends. But if you start doing that, in terms of context of tags, it's not a problem. You'll see that house, for example, should only be appearing once in there. There it is, even though it's being effectively called 3 times. And you also now picked up renovation because we picked up the walls figure there. So that's the idea. You can also clear selected just by clicking that. And that will just clear it so you can start again. The only thing you have to watch out for is that if you use, let's say we go for curtains and holidays, holidays, and here you select move to a category folder. What the category folder is something that going to look a bit like that. So you select a main folder, and then what will happen is using the folder paths, it will create a folder called house if it doesn't already exist, another one called curtains. It won't do the house again. It'll create another one for gardens. And if I do that one there, let's just take those 2 off in a minute. That will do house followed by renovations followed by walls. So it'll build that structure for you. So that's another way of being able to look at your data. We'll have a look at that when I start to process a few. If you decide you've deleted something by mistake, you can simply drag it back again. And you can also drag something from the remove column area across into this area, and it'll pick up the tags then from there. The next thing to look at is you can change the view. So sometimes these pictures aren't big enough, so you can look at a single column view, so you're seeing a bigger picture of the same thing. Or you can go to single picture, which is as big as you get. The options you have up here, you can do nothing, or you can move it to a deleted folder, or you can delete from the source folder. So you've got the 3 different things to do. To play safe, I'd say move it to a deleted folder. You can delete it later if you wanted to. For the tag options, basically you either do nothing or you populate the metadata. If you're doing the option of copying to a category folder, you select a categories folder, which I think I called tag pictures. So that will now go into tag pictures. You don't necessarily need to store the metadata if you're storing it in folders that look like that. It's up to you. Size option, basically there's a number of different sizes. You can leave it at 100% or you can reduce it down further. That may have uses if you are in business, you've got clients, for example, and you've got Vodafone there. I'd say we'll add a subcategory to them and we'll call that for print. So for those, you're going to probably want high quality pictures. So you want to leave it as it is. And we'll add another subcategory and we'll call that for web. Okay, so if you want to move these around, if you want to, then you can do. You can just move the category from there, move to there. And I can move it to above for web, which obviously is what I actually want to do. And so you can move it around. You are limited to moving within a particular group. If I try to drag for print up to clients, for example, then that could be a problem. But you might have created a property here, new category, say flowers. And once you've done that, you might then decide, actually, I want to put that in the garden. So you can move it to garden, and then you've got the options of, you can move it above, which is where it already is, add as a child to garden, or move to below. Well, we've just seen a move to above, so we'll add it as a child. And now it's there. Whenever you drag a picture over, whatever that status is at that particular time is which will be stored. So you can collect quite a variety of pictures to go to different paths and all the rest of it. But in terms of move to category and so on, one other thing to look at is, let's just go back to multi-view. I've included on here an edit facility so you can see how these things are built. I did this originally for my own development purposes and then thought, well, maybe it's worthwhile keeping it here. So this is the code, which is stored in a table. It's in 3 parts, effectively. You'll see I've got a split there and a split there. So everything above and below, not that there's anything there at the moment, is to do with how this all behaves up here. And then the split here is basically passing the information through. So I have some code that splits this into effectively three parts. First part it can just post across, although there's one thing it does do. The split then is populated, and if you look over here, this is the code that you're actually using. Sorry, the screen isn't quite wide enough, but if we get down to here, you'll see these are all repeated down here. So if you wanted to play around with how that actually works, so for example, you might decide that you want to have, I don't want to play around with the widths, let's say we want the border. I don't know if you know HTML, I'm still learning, but that is something you can do. If I use this code, you now get a red border around the container. So each of those is a container. I don't want to get too much into that, but you can play around with this to get different looks and views. Go back to process. I'll leave the red border on. It's there for effect. If I move this over here, you can see it's processing as we talk. What it's doing is, because these pictures are so large, if you try and load them into Access, that number of that size, it falls over, or at least you get an error and it won't display any more pictures. So I can give you an example of something in a minute. So what it's doing is it's checking to see whether there is any existing tags, and if so, it's populating them. I think it's finished now. So that determines whether it appears in this column or in this area here. So again, we've got those four there.
Can I just respond to a question from Melvin? There's also a question from Ben as well. But Melvin, Exif is EXIF tool is the command line tool that Chris is using to assign the tags, and he will talk about that more later on. The other thing I was going to say, Chris, is I don't think you mentioned about using IE10 emulation mode.
Oh, I didn't. No.
Yeah, but I'll get you to come back to that.
Yeah, so I've gone to a different picture here. Now, both of these, if I pull the folder over, you'll see that there's three pictures here, and only two are appearing. The third one isn't appearing. So these have already got, again, I don't know if you noticed, but they're already tagged. I'm going to just drag that back there. I can drag them both back, and then I can reassign them to something else. Let's say holidays. And this time we'll go to category folder, which is what's specified, tag pictures, process. And what we should find, if I go to the tagged folder, this is the tagged folder, so hopefully under house we'll find two images. No, we don't. Move to a category folder. It's not done anything. Was I looking in the I was looking in the wrong picture. Nice. Holidays. No, that's also empty. That was working earlier, and now it isn't. Oh yeah, I took a tip from Colin on this. To open a folder, but be able to see whether it's got pictures in it, you need to effectively use the open file thing. Once you select a folder, and I do say up here, select a folder by selecting a file. Select this folder, and that hopefully will bring things through. So some of these have been tagged, some haven't. If I go to edit HTML, the record source that's controlling it is here. This is an ADO record set, and the bridge one has no meta. There's no metadata. You cannot add any data on. So you go to properties, details. That's where the tags go, and you can add more tags in as you wish. But this one, you go to properties, you go to details. There's nothing there. You've got dimensions and other bits of information, but not anything for tags. And I've not found a way, an Exif tool, as far as I know, doesn't have a way of being able to add meta in. The only way of doing it is to create a new file which has that information in it. And I haven't got, in terms of the work I'm doing on this, I haven't got that far. So bridge doesn't appear. You're only seeing the three images. You're not seeing bridge. What I can do is show it here. I can't show the picture unless I click on it, and then you can see the picture. But you can't do anything with it. I can delete it, but I can't allocate any metadata to it.
I think it's worth. I was just going to say, Exif Tool that you use can handle a number of different file types, but it does depend. As you say, it can only work with the metadata categories that exist for that file type, and because that bridge is a PNG file, it can't do anything with it in this case.
Yeah, that's right. There's two ways of getting the metadata. One is using Exif, and the other one is using FSO. probably can do it with WIA as well, but I use FSO because it's quicker than Exif to grab the metadata, and then I use Exif to update tags. They're called keywords just to make things confusing. There's tags on the in the details section there, but they're called keywords as far as Exif is concerned. Just go back to HTML. Colin mentioned about IE version. I'm using IE10. You can probably go to 11, but if you go to 12, which is the equivalent of the Edge browser, what the Edge browser uses, code doesn't work. And I think I don't want to go into too much detail on it, but it's because the way the web pages are constructed, the code that I'm using at the moment, this code here, doesn't work the way I want it to. So I've probably got to modify something so that I assign this code to a different part of a different property of a web control. Okay, so I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover on that. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So this uses Exif Tool. A number of things about it. It is freeware, and you use it to assign keywords to metadata, i.e. tags. It's a command line tool, so it needs to be located in a path with no spaces. I got caught out on that, stopped working, and it's because I had my app in a folder with a space in it in the path. There's another slight limitation. It supports a maximum path length of 246 characters. Otherwise, you get an error. To be fair, most of my paths are relatively short, but some people may have that as an issue. And in Windows, it won't process files with Unicode characters in the file name. The loading time, this is an issue of Exif for Windows, increases significantly when Windows Defender is active. Disabling Windows Defender may speed things up. I've not had a chance to experiment at the moment, but when it's first loading up the files from the folder, it uses Exif Tool quite extensively, and that's what takes the time. Before I started using it, at the beginning of the project, the thing loaded almost instantaneously. What's next? One of the things I want to be able to try and do is enable view of tags on mouse over, so hovering over the image will show you the tags that are associated with it. And I also want to try and enable drag and drop to a specific category. What I mean by that is rather than just dragging it into the green box, you could drag it across to a specific category. That would save you having to change categories all the time. And I want to enable the ability to multi-select images to drop. So you might select from the middle box 4, 5, 6, whatever number of images, and drag those across either to delete or to the to be processed box. And I also need to test out using Edge browser control. I have tried it once, found it didn't work, and gave up at that point. And I think that's about it. Has anybody got any questions about how it actually works? I'm not talking about the code and so on, but how something works.
There's no questions in the chat about that.
Right.
There are other questions there. If anyone wants to ask Chris a question about how it works, please turn your microphone on and I'll call on you. Deafening silence. Oh, we've even got somebody from Mexico here. Hello, Edgar.
Hey, everybody. Can you all hear me?
I can indeed, yes. Edgar, I'm going to come back to you. I see you've put something in the chat already, so I'll come back to that. Right, Chris, do you want to take some questions at this stage?
Yeah.
The first question, which I've now lost, was from Ben Sakarich, and he asked, have you considered using an API to tag images for you? And he's listed a particular one, RoboFlow, which are image tagging API. Now, I don't know that one. Ben, do you want to say anything more about that?
I just gave a link because it was one I found. I don't have any experience with it, but I believe it uses a Python library. And you can feed it keywords, and it'll tell you whether those keywords are in the image. So it'll be more focused to what your needs are than just telling you it's a blue wall, which you might not care about.
Thank you, Ben. Right.
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. Who's speaking at the moment? Sorry.
It's Edgar.
Oh, hello, Edgar. Yep. I was just about to come to you and your question in the chat. Would you like to read that out or speak to it?
I will write it.
Okay, right. I'll just read out Edgar's question. I think he's typing something at the moment there, and he said,
I can say it.
Okay, you're breaking up a bit though. That's the only thing, Edgar. I'll read that point out. Edgar said, VBA can generate HTML code through the Microsoft HTML library that works through VBA. However, it is also possible to write HTML code directly. Browser control will render it just fine too.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, the latter. I had a look at the HTML generator. Problem was, you still had to know exactly how it was going to work. I used Copilot quite a lot to get ideas as to what the code needed to look like, and I didn't find that the API was very helpful in that respect.
Right, Neil Sargent, have you considered using a TreeView control for the categories? Drag and drop is built in.
I did look at using that. There are two things. One was I wanted to do it my way anyway, but also it's the things like multi-select and things like that. I didn't find a TreeView that worked for me, did what I wanted it to do. This one uses a video disconnected record set.
Crystal asked, do you know how long a tag string can be?
Indications are about a total of about 5,000 characters, but I've never tested it that far, so I'm not quite sure how many it would be. But I've tested up to about 150 characters without any problems.
Right. So you believe it can be more than 255, which was going to be my guess.
Oh yes, more than a string. Yeah.
Okay. Neil has asked, is the browser code static or being generated on the fly?
It's static in terms of there's the basic code that we're using, which I created with the help of Copilot and ChatGPT. And what happens is there's VBA that interprets that and creates this code over here, which is the full code, and that is then assigned to each of the three web controls. Down here, you can see I can move to. This is a slightly different version. It's a backup of that. So if you ever went wrong, and then there's this version here, which is a way of just clearing the screen. So I can add more. If I wanted to try new HTML code, I can just put it in here and then run that and see what it looks like over here.
Neil's just said, can we see that bit of code?
Which code? The VBA code?
Neil?
I'm sorry, to me the concept hasn't been made clear. I don't understand fundamentally what's happening here. We've got three browsers which are running some HTML.
Yeah.
And is that HTML that you've just loaded into the browsers, or is it being thrown in and out dynamically by some sort of VBA program at the back?
There's a VBA program at the back. So basically this is the code that's kept in a table in here. So that's the code stored in there. I've got some descriptions, what it does and so on. So that's my working table. I mean, at one time I had about 30 or 40 different bits of code. Change that, and then so the code is generated, you select a folder, and at the time the code is generated, that's the getting the name of the folder. It assigns that to it, and we then create or have I've already created here you populate the record set. So that's going in and creating the record set, which I showed you a bit earlier. If there's a problem, then it'll say there's nothing to produce. And then it populates each of the three different controls: images, which is the one in the middle; process, which is the green one; and remove, which is there. So if I go to web control, you can see I've got lots of
if you
code.
Just Shift F2 it, jump to it. Click Shift F2, it'll jump straight to it.
Right. Shift F2.
Yeah, if you're on a function name and you hit Shift F2, it goes there.
Oh, does it?
Mm.
Oh, so I highlight that and go Shift
So
F2.
you need to highlight, just be in it, hit Shift F2, and you'll be in the function popWebCtl.
Oh, I never knew that.
It's big time saver.
And another
Huge
way,
time. Yeah.
right click on it and click definition. That's the way I always do it.
Right. I have things to learn still, clearly. Right. So first of all, we're picking up and assigning whichever web control has been passed to a variable called control, an object I call control. The filter is set to 0, and it then loops through the filter and it sets the statuses. So if it's in web images, the filter is set to 0. If it's in remove, it's 1, and if it's processed, it's -1. So that's the filter that decides what's going to appear in a web control. I look up the HTML code. That's to clear the screen, and then I split the code. There's one thing I do put in there, which is the size, because the size, you can change the middle one from multi-column, single picture, whereas the other two stay at the same static size. I then go through and I'm then this horrible replace string, replacing text file with the name of the file. I've created a thumbs directory, which is a smaller version of the file, so you can get more in, and the file name. And then so that's basically setting what the CTL HTML will look like. That's the stuff that the one that was at the box on the right. We then split. That's the first section, section 0. So that was section 1. And then section 2, it just adds that on the end. And then it writes that information to that object. And this is where I think Edge is different. I don't think it uses object, or it has something else between CTL and object. And that's it. That's basically how each one gets populated. Does that make sense, Neil?
Yes, it's fascinating. Just using the browser controls as just a general tool like that. I've not seen that done. That's a very clever idea.
Yeah, well, I originally
TreeView is doing something similar, but it's just an HTML representation of a TreeView, is it?
Yes. Now the TreeView is in that one there. It's a lot more complicated, but I set some shortcut menus up, and then that's directed to do various actions. So if I want to edit a character category, it does that. But again, there's an ADO record set which is created. I used the AO initially because there's your catalog initially. So basically, all I need is those 3 columns, and then the cat order is defined. If you change the order, it will change in here. So honey belongs to Paddington. Paddington 9 belongs to pets, and pets is a top level 0. So that's how I start, and the record set's populated recursively by going through this here and setting the cat orders. I've disabled that bit at the moment because I'm playing around with a slightly different way of doing things. So that's what you start off with, and I think I've got code in there that if it's empty, it prompts you for the first one just to get you going. If it doesn't, I'll put it in. Otherwise, I could just say, right, that's the top one there. We'll just call that. Yeah. So initially I created this kind of manually with the first 2 or 3 things, and then after that I just built it up from within the tree itself.
So that's the TreeView self-referencing data. How's that being represented as a TreeView inside the control?
Right, okay. I think I can show you one here. Okay, so hidden away, you don't see it, is this information here. So that's the primary key. That's the sort order. This is show or not show. So these are, because of that, you can only see these because they're showing. Then none of them have been selected. If I tick a box, you'll see that changes to true. The level 0, so house is on level 0. Let's just open this up. So house has renovation. So the way I've constructed this, rather than recursively having to work backwards, I have a number of levels here. I've set it as a max levels of 5. I found that's enough, but there's a constant you can change to make it more. In terms of this screen here, you'll only see the 4. It doesn't add the others on if you make it 5 or 6. You can see that renovation is a level 1 because it's in one step. Its level 0 is 1, which is the PK, that one there. And then level 1, which is where that is 2, which is the PK for that. It's probably a bit easier to see if we look at something like this one here. So 103 is on level 1. Let's try pets. Might be something on there. Paddington and honey. So if we look at honey, that is level 0, 1, 2. So we're on a level 2, 97, which is the primary key. 96 is the immediate parent, Paddington. And then 9 is pets, which is a level 0, so that's as far as it goes. So what we're looking at in terms of the build is those 3 there. The advantage is that when I want to hide something, like if I on here, on house, on renovation, no, if I want to hide house at the moment is showing all trues. All I have to do is use the function where level 0 equals 1. So if I turn that off, all the 1s have gone except for house, and the reason that there's a rule in there that keeps it. Pointer is identified there, so if I up it, the pointer changes to like a diagonal one, and they're very similar looking numbers, but that's 9698 and 9658 for one that is not open.
So basically, it's just a table record set, and you're displaying different symbols and tabs according to what's in the fields of the record set.
Yeah. That's right. So that's the actual ADO record set. You can't filter it or sort. Well, you can delete things from it, but you can't filter because it's ADO. You get the syntax error. So basically what you're seeing is the same there, but this is showing you all of them. So where you got show, you're now seeing walls, for example, which you can't see there. This is really just for development purposes. It's not for anything else. It's just to give you a feel for how it all works. So the algorithm, it does get complicated when you want to move, say, Paddington to, it's already in pets. If you wanted to move Pooh Bear to Paddington, then you've got to move all these down. And originally I had separate sort columns, like the level columns, but I found it a lot easier to manage by just having a constant 1, 2, 3 all the way through. So if I move Pooh Bear to Paddington, then basically Pooh Bear becomes 9 plus 1 is 10, and everything from 10 to 11 will get increased by 1. So you keep the same numbers. So if well, let's use this one, garden. So garden is here. So if I select, I want to move that from there to above renovation, we'll say. Okay, renovation is 2, is there, it's done it now. But you'll notice that the numbers, because I can't change the order of this, the numbers have all changed. So garden has now become sort order 2. It's very simple sort. But it does get complicated because what I then have to do, if I try to move it to a different category, I want to put curtains against holidays, then you've got to start messing around with the levels as well. And
I know it sounds complicated, but that's where recursion would actually solve your problem.
That's why I agree.
That's why TreeViews are always recursive.
Yeah. I mean, the code, if you want the VBA code, categories. You've got a number of different choices. On the mouse up from the text category, that's what the actual text is. You could move above something else, below something else, make it a child of something else. Those are the 3 basic ones, or do nothing. What we're having to do is do a case on here, and I'm playing around with a record set to move things around. So to add as a child, that's choice 1, that's to add. Right, this is the moving up and down. So that's the warning to, if you try to move to a different area, you can't do that. But otherwise you can, it starts off with a from PK and a to PK, and that picks it up from the 2 different record sets that I'm running. They're both copies of the original master record set. And then depending on whether you're dragging down or up, you have to fix the high and the low. And that's only required because you need to do a cat order like that. I mean, I could set that slightly differently, but that's the way I've chosen to do it. And then use the code to move it is just that. Not much to it at all.
Right, Chris, rather than going into any more detail on the code for now, maybe come back to this later if appropriate, would you like to go back and finish your presentation, and then I'll come to the various people who've asked questions, but I think some of them may be covered by your finishing your presentation, if that's okay. There's about 4 people: Crystal, John Heiser, Edgar, Alex Kidd, maybe others. So we'll come back to you.
Well, that's it really. That's what's next, is to do those things there, and then that's my contact information. So that's all that's left on my presentation.
Okay, right. So after this meeting, then you'll make that presentation available with those links there, and also you will supply the cataloguer app, and also along with that, you've also supplied a copy of Exif Tool, so people who don't already have it, some people will have, they'll be able to download that themselves there. Okay, let me come back to the questions then, and I'll start with John Heiser, who, well, it wasn't a question, it was a statement here. He said that if you find loading Exif Tool is slow, you can exclude locations from Windows Defender, and he's given a link for doing that.
Oh, right, yeah. I haven't looked into how you do it yet, but it's something to look at, and if there's other ways of doing it, but yeah, I'll have a look.
Okay, John, did you want to add anything to that comment there and that link? Is there anything else to amplify that comment there?
No, it was just pointing it out, really.
Thanks, and you are obviously familiar with Exif Tool, I assume, from your own use.
Not personally, no. I was just aware that you can exclude things from Defender.
Okay, thanks. Crystal said some time ago that, and I think that we've already had one from Edgar, I think it was Edgar as well, there are all, no, sorry, it was Ben, there are various different methods of getting or editing metadata. Crystal's mentioned Wayne Phillips File Property Manager and given a link for that on the Everything Access website there, and he provides code that will allow you to read and modify file metadata, not just for JPG files, but for any file. Crystal, did you want to add to that comment?
No, I just want to say that it's amazing. It takes a little time to load the files, and Colin, you know already because you've written one of those property managers as well. But it's really nice, and he doesn't have on the menu how to write and read, and put it into your application. But if you look at the link, then he tells you how to do it. And you can just bring his stuff into your application. Of course, it's got the Wayne Phillips obfuscate in plain sight way of doing things. But I really like it.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the tool as well, and it is very powerful. But as Crystal said, Wayne has a way of hiding his code, which can be infuriating, but the code works. Right, Edgar asked, is the drag and drop feature done with HTML or VBA?
A bit of both. Basically the HTML picks up the move and it passes to a variable that VBA can pick up the information about the image it's traveling over at the time. And on the mouse down within HTML, this is JavaScript. There's this thing called image data, so a variable, and what VBA can do is pick that up. So on the mouse move, basically it's picking up, where has it gone? Yeah, there it is. It's finding the information it needs. So it's giving me the image ID, which is basically the PK that is in the video record set. The X and Y, top left and right, top and left, width and height. Now that comes through in pixels, so that you have to then convert that to TWIPs. What happens then is on the mouse down, it picks up this. When you click down, it runs this function here. So this is now picking up that image data, and then it's assigning the information to a form called form drag image, which is just a simple form. It sizes it and places it above the existing image that you just clicked on. It might be out by a pixel or two, but it's basically that's what it is. And then control is passed from that to the detail mouse move of form drag image. It's just basically moving it so that that form, semi-transparent form, will move. And then back on here, it started off on here on the mouse up. There we go. We use the good old ACCURATE test to find out on the form below what the control is, and then it basically passes control back to that form again. So the to control is a property in here. So it assigns a property to that, and from there it's then, depending on which control it does what it needs to do.
Image data, the property of the parent window image data, you have a property by that name. Where does that come from?
The property
image data is a built-in property of
oh no, what happens is, go back to mouse down. So what it's doing is, because it's bringing back the data is this image data here, that includes the primary key in the ADO record set. So from that, I can find the image from there, data naught, and from there, I can then assign the picture that is specified in that data. I can assign it to the picture, which is the picture that's on a form, not the detail section, but the form. That's what the form looks like. Nothing in it at all. What I have got is, on open, it does a couple of things. It sets the transparency to 180, and then on mouse up, it then basically passes control back to the cataloguer form. But in terms of properties on here, when it's opened, the categories form is changing the width and height and its location so that it appears directly above the existing image. Yeah,
I can see that it is a tremendous amount of work to make all of that linking between all of those functions.
Yeah.
And definitely the thing that I would be most interested in inspecting once you share your file is how you are passing values from JavaScript to VBA, because that's very interesting, and I will have a few uses for that, definitely.
If I couldn't have done that, then this wouldn't have worked. And the other interesting thing is that in the code for the image, I actually set on drag start, I disable the drag event but that's disabling it in HTML. Otherwise, you get another dragged image appearing underneath. But then when you get to the edge of the web control, you get a big cross and the image disappears. So it just didn't look very tidy to me, having effectively two semi-transparent images, one on top of the other.
Chris, with apologies, can I just interrupt your section, because I know Aid, who's our next month's presenter, has to leave fairly soon.
Okay.
So there's still a couple of outstanding questions as well. Alex Kidd had a comment, which I'll come back to, if that's okay, Alex.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd just like to thank you for your presentation, which was very interesting. And there's obviously a lot of material there for people to look at when you do release this. Can I just ask one question? I don't think you've included the auto-exec macro to reset the browser emulation mode to IE10.
No, I didn't get around to doing it.
But can we have that before you release that, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. If we break off now, and we'll come back to you in a second, after Aid has had his talk, is that all right? And first of all, Aid, let me just pull up next month's presentation. Okay, as I said, thank you ever so much, Chris, and we'll come back to you in a minute, time permitting. Next month, on the 4th of December, we have fellow MVP Adrian Bell. He's been an MVP for a lot longer than me, and he's also from the UK, from London. And he is going to be talking about a fairly old technology which you can still use, and many people perhaps aren't aware of that. So Aid is going to tell you how you can create custom ribbons using command bars. Aid, over to you.
Colin, do you have the breakdown that you put on the site for what that is, or shall I do it from scratch? Because that was helpful, I found.
I'll try and pull it onto the screen, but I don't know how quickly I can.
Don't worry. I'll get on it. So there are. I won't go into too much detail because it's just basically a preview. You can still use command bars and command bar controls, command bar buttons, etc. on even in modern day ActDBs. The command bar is an Office. Thank you. The command bar is an Office item, and it's still valid and working now. It does have certain limitations, and I'll be going into some of those. But you can create new command bars, and what happens, what you'll see when you're running it in Access is that you have an add-ins toolbar that gets added automatically to accommodate however many of these things that you add. I will be going through creating it. I will have a database to share which has the code that I use in that. I will be showing various different types of control on there and playing with it a little bit. And then if I have time at the end, I will show something that Colin has done a different way, where you can get a command bar to open certain standard external programs for you, like calculator and various other things that are standard on Windows. I will be looking to show doing that without having to, let's put it this way, showing that but doing all in code. So this is VBA on the fly. I think that's one of the important aspects of it. I think that's pretty much all I need to say for now. If you're happy with that, Colin.
Thank you. That's great, Adrian. And there is a video of Aid's earlier presentation, which he covered just the first part, which he will review this time, available on YouTube. You can get to it from that link, and this is on the page on my website, AEU33, which is shown here. Right.
Perfect.
I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, right. Thank you, Aidan. And if you have to go in a second, thanks. We'll see you next month and chat before that. And if we can come back, Edgar, had you covered all the points you wanted to say earlier
Yeah, don't worry. The only thing I wanted to point out is that it is a lot of work because I have tried to do that in the past, and it's not that I have failed, but I have struggled a lot, and it's gonna be very educational once we can have access to this file.
The file should be on the website, both the Access Europe official website and on my own website, within 24 hours or so, along with Chris's presentation. And the video of this session will probably be early next week. So thank you, Edgar. Alex Kidd asked a question. I don't know whether they've covered it or not really. Alex, are you still here?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yeah. It was basically just on I think it was actually the categories form, where it was like using a TreeView, but not a TreeView, if you know what I mean. I just wondered if there was if recursion was possible in the table, like having that child-parent relationship.
Yeah, I use recursion to create the disconnected record set, but I found to use recursion to update was a problem.
Oh, I see.
It starts off and it's great, and then you find, well, actually, I want to be able to do this, like, I don't know, move something from one place to another. And the amount of work that's involved recursion-wise is a lot more than it is on doing it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not possible to just change the parent and just completely redraw the whole thing? Because that's what a TreeView would normally do. You just change one child's parent and say redraw the whole TreeView from the top down.
Yeah, but that's the point. You've got to redraw the whole thing. What this does is it just modifies the 3 or 4 lines that are between where you started and where you finished.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Pity I didn't actually see Adrian's other. Well, I did see it, but I didn't actually reference it before. I think he has now left. You were talking about multiple replace and so on earlier, and he has got he's provided a link to it at my request. He has got a multiple replace function, a multi-replace function, which will basically gets rid of all these sort of nested replace calls in the same line of code. So that's there. I'm going to try and, when I do the video, I will try and put some or all of these links into the YouTube commentary as well, if I can. Any other questions for Chris about his presentation, his application?
Well, I do have another question. I would like to ask Chris whether he would be interested in some piece of VBA code that does the tagging, the Exif data modifications through VBA itself. It uses a lot of Windows API functions. It's a lot of low code. How is it said? Low level code, but I've seen it working, and it's on Mr. Excel. I've seen it there.
Yeah.
It works fine. I don't see if you have seen it. It's by a user called Jafar Tribak or something like that. And it's very, very useful. I guess it can be adapted into your application at some point, if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm interested in looking at other methods. I mean, the way I see it, this is actually probably about half done. And when you see the code, you'll think, God, you could simplify that. But I just haven't had the time to do that, because I find there's lots of little quirks. Yeah. And you think about doing things in different ways. So this is kind of where I've got to at the moment, which is it'll do what I want, but there's these other things I want to add on. And if there's an alternative to Exif that is faster, then I'm interested in looking at it.
I was just going to say, with apps like this, there is always something we can add, and you're saying that there's things you would like to find time to do at some point in the future. That is always the way there, but the app will be available for people if they choose to adapt it by using one of these other tools for applying tags. That would be great. I'll just point out that Exif Tool not only can change the tags or keywords, it can also change other properties, extended properties such as comments, which also is useful, and there's another way of doing this here, and I probably can do quite a few of the other extended comments. So it's something I was trying to do, extended file properties, altering the properties, and I was trying to find other ways of doing it. So I'd be interested in any alternative methods as well as ExifTool as well here. But please do bear in mind that if you're Internet Explorer feature browser emulation, sorry, start again. Internet Explorer, the old web browser control, the legacy web browser control, defaults to IE7, would you believe, which dates back to something like 2005. You need to bring it up to date by using a registry key called feature browser emulation. The last version of IE was IE11, but this code only works with IE10, so you need to set it to that, and if you've got it set to 11, you'll want to set it back again later, or even to IE12, which is Edge browser emulation there. So it's basically a way of forcing the browser to work in a certain version. But as I say, unfortunately, unless you force it to be otherwise, it defaults to IE7. Okay, we've got your link there. Thank you. It's Mr. Excel. And who did you say that was by? That code?
The user is called Jafar Tribak. I don't know how to pronounce it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But you know, I think he's from Morocco.
Okay, brilliant. Right, Chris, is there anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, a lot of people have thanked you for your code there and the idea behind this topic. So it's obviously got a lot of people interested. And thank you again for presenting. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Okay, thank you very much.